Shalom Zion. In today's video, I will use Deuteronomy chapter 18 again, but this time from a different angle, showing you each and every abomination is directly connected to the gods of old, especially the gods of Canaan. Not only that, but all world's religions today have revived these wicked customs and changed some details to fit their new users. In this video, I intend to show you the idol gods and their nations. Let's break this down to further our understanding. Deuteronomy chapter 18 verses 9 through 10, quote, "And when thou shalt have entered into the land which Yah thy Elohim gives thee, thou shalt not learn to do according to the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found in thee one who purges his son or his daughter with fire." Selah. Now let's see the God this abomination serves and the nations who willfully keep this wicked act, starting with the ritual of purging one's own son or daughter with fire. Jeremiah chapter 39 and verse 35, quote, "And they built to the bee idol the altars that are in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to offer their sons and their daughters to King Unholy Moloch, which things I commanded them not, neither came it into my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin." End quote.
Said to the guys, Holy Moly Donut Shop.
Holy moly donut shop.
Very good. You get one free Berkla every lunch break, huh?
This is the idol god that this evil act pleases. This proves what I said in part A about the Most High calling out each and every idol god of the nations, telling them their depths and the cutting offs of their nations. For instance, it seems as though to perform this unholy sacrifice to Unholy Moly, you must be in the Valley of Hinnom, or Hinnom, KJV, which was originally inhabited by the Jebusites, a nation of Canaan. Almost like Unholy Moly chose that place for his name's sake, the same as the Most High choosing Jerusalem to call his name forever, almost like they're copying exactly what the Most High has done in the past. Now we know which idol god is connected to this abomination, and the place where one must sacrifice the flesh of their flesh and the bone of their bones. Let's see which nation called this enemy of Yah their idol god. First Kings chapter 11 verse 4 through 8, quote, "And it came to pass in the time of old age of Solomon that his heart was not perfect with Yah his Elohim, as was the heart of David his father. And to the A goddess, the abomination of the Zidonians. And Solomon did that which was evil in the sight of Yah. And he went not after Yah as David his father. Then Solomon built a high place to the sea idol of Moab, and to their king, the idol of the children of Ammon. And thus he acted towards all his strange wives, who burned incense and sacrificed to their idol." End quote. Unholy Moly is their king and an idol of the children of Ammon. Apparently, the Phoenicians also partook with this idol. 3 foreign gods were called out by Yah in just 4 verses with their nations. This is the reason why the Most High Yah forbade us from mixing with the nations. Uncle Solomon's life is the best example of the perils of joining yourself to the nations. They will take you off the path that leads to the Most High. You have the goddess of the Sidonians, a nation of Phoenicia. The idol goddess is supposedly responsible for war and fertility. Dang, she kills and makes alive? Hey, isn't that an attribute of the Most High? Her worship has been remixed by Assyria, the Greeks, and Romans. This ancient Canaanite religion and idol goddess has been co-opted by the Gentiles. One more fact about this goddess. This is who you celebrate or worship with all of your Easter festivities, not Lucifer JC. The Moabites' idol, little is known about it besides it is an abomination and an enemy to the Most High Yah. And while he is the national deity of the Moabites, he is on the pantheon for the Ammonites. These abominations, plus the women, caused Uncle Solomon's heart to turn from the one who gave him his power. One more thing before we move on. The scriptures called Uncle Solomon's wives strange wives. Even though an Israelite male married them, they were still considered strange and from non-Israelite stock. Let's pick back up at verse 10 with the next act. Quote, "One who uses divination." End quote. Every single nation and religion is guilty of this, but let's see what the scripture says. Isaiah chapter 2 verses 5 through 6, quote, "And now, O house of Jacob, Come and let us walk in the light of Yah, for he has forsaken his people, the house of Israel, because their land is filled as at the beginning with divinations, as the land of the Philistines, and many strange children were born to them." End quote. The land of the Philistines was filled to the brim with divinations, thus those with divining spirits in them. The Philistines are the seed of Mizraim, Genesis 10 and 14. The nations are playing a deadly game with these wicked abominations. The Most High Yah told us to come out of her, my people, not physically, but spiritually and mentally. Yah will gather us. Get your hearts and minds right first. Strange wives in the last verse and strange children in this verse. Just because you're an Israelite doesn't mean everything that comes from your loins will be an Israelite. Yah consider Uncle Solomon's other wives strange, and the children we conceive with those nations strange, meaning unfamiliar or alien. Just because you might be an Israelite doesn't mean you can sleep with other nations to produce Israel's next generation. The campers have lied once again. Now for the one behind the Philistines or Mizraim's abominations. 1 Chronicles chapter 10 verses 7 through 10. Quote, "And all the men of Israel that were in the valley saw that Israel fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead. And they left their cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. And it came to pass on the next day that the Philistines came to strip the slain, and they found Saul and his sons fallen on Mount Jebul. And they stripped him, and took his head and his armor, and they sent them into the land of the Philistines round about, to proclaim the glad tidings to their idols and to the people. And they put their armor in the house of their God, and they put his head in the house of their God." End quote. The fish idol god of the Philistines, and now the Catholics, is a deity of fertility and agriculture.
Now, Dagon, the false god, had a torso of a fish. He had the body of a fish, but the head and the arms of a man. So he was this half man, half fish sea creature who was worshipped as the chief deity by the Philistines. Dagon, interestingly, was also considered the father of Baal. So you hear about Baal a lot in the Bible, but Dagon was considered even superior to Baal. And I want to take a minute here to compare the practices of the Roman Catholic Church to the fish god Dagon. Do you ever wonder why the bishops and the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church wear a mitre upon their head? What's a mitre? That's that pointed, that white pointed funny hat with a top that looks like a fish with an open mouth. Well, this began around the 11th century, and it's supposed to represent, according to Roman Catholic churches or sources, the splendor of the holiness embodied by the bishop, his dignity and authority. Okay, that's what the Roman Catholics will say, this, this funny looking fish hat with an open mouth, but I'm not sure how a hat shaped like a fish with an open mouth represents splendor or holiness in any way. But it is eerily similar to the headdress that the priests of Dagon wore. You can see it in these side-by-side pictures if you pull these pictures up online. Dagon was the chief deity of the Philistines and was the father of Baal, but the Roman Catholic Church sources claim that each of the two folds at the top of the mitre represent the Old and the New Testaments, and that it was developed after the tiara or crown that the bishops wore. So you also have Mariolatry within the Roman Catholic Church, the worship of Mary as the mediatrix and the Queen of Heaven. In the Bible, there was also Ashtaroth or Ishtar, who is called the Queen of Heaven. Ashtaroth was the wife or consort of Baal. So when we consider that Dagon, the fish god, is the father of Baal, and Baal and Ashtaroth are his children, the connections between these Mesopotamian false gods and goddesses and the worship of the Virgin Mary as the Queen of Heaven and the bishops and the Pope wearing this fish hat, this should at least raise some eyebrows.
Here we have the papal headdress, and when one puts it, lays it down this way, now you see the fish god. Consequently, the papal headdress is a fish head. Here you will see the priest with his fish head. There it is, the fish's head. So the next time you see the papal headdress, just remember this is the fish head. Dagon, the ancient Babylonian fish god.
They worship a merman. Now we know why. This is the second commandment. Exodus 20:4, quote, "Thou shalt not make to thyself an idol, nor likeness of anything, whatever things are in the heaven above, and whatever are in the earth beneath, and whatever are in the waters under the earth," end quote. If this idol godfish is a merman, he has to live in the waters under the earth, right? The word of Yah ain't no joke. Starbucks uses an image similar to this one. I wouldn't be surprised if their coffee was offered to this goddess, like what we saw with liquid death. So could this mean the Catholic priests and cardinals are diviners and all popes have had divining spirits in them? Is this why all religions have customs and mandatory styles of dress for the priests, bishop, reverends, pastors, popes, etc. to perform their rituals? Think about it. Every religion has at least one day out of every month where the whole congregation must dress in a certain attire. For Christianity, it's that unholy communion.
The rise of Mithras almost exactly parallels the rise of Jesus, although his origins could be much more ancient. Some say he was created by the Romans, others that he came from Persia and India.
Mithras was seen as a saviour god. He was unusual amongst the gods in that you weren't really trying to bribe him in quite the same way that they were trying to bribe some of the other deities to make sure that your life on earth was as comfortable as possible. Mithras was rare in that he actually offered you a life after death.
So if Mithras predated Jesus and is also a saviour god who offered his followers a life after death, did Christianity steal these ideas?
It was a mystery cult. We certainly know that they were having ritual meals. It seems to have been a fairly basic feast, based largely on the chickens, on bread and on wine.
Bread and wine?
Bread and wine, yes.
You know, it's got similarities with early Christianity, the sense of feasting, the sense of discipline. You don't have to appease the deity, you work at things for your own good. There's a deity who is a god of light, who is sent by a major deity to kill his nemesis in order to redeem and save the world.
Yes, the early Christian fathers, who wrote a lot, were very upset about Mithraism. They thought that Mithraism was parodying Christianity.
Could this be the attire of sorcerers and witches? Those first ladies loved wearing the over-the-top hats with veils or kerchiefs upon them, like the Christian witch we saw in the last video, all of which is expressly forbidden by the Most High. One people or nation who have taken wickedness too far, even beyond the beige man, if you can believe that, are the Jews of Lucifer. You know, the ones from Uncle Japhet's house. Look at the cunning of the chosen people.
The secret Jewish Passover sale they're not telling you about. Hi, my name is Rabbi Raps, and I teach you what you should have learned in Hebrew school. On the Jewish holiday of Passover, we're not allowed to eat bread, leaven, and we're not allowed to even own it. And that's why we're writing "Don't open" and we're sealing away the contents of this freezer.
We're selling the contents of this freezer to someone who's non-Jewish, and we'll buy it back after the holiday. No one should open this because this is not ours during the holiday of Passover, when we only eat matzah, no hummus. In here, we have all the food we made for Passover. This is kosher for Passover.
It's obvious what's being done out here. It's on a nightly basis. I hope the world can see now what's really going on out here, because it's getting ridiculous. It's really ridiculous.
As in the Jewish Bible, that once a woman gets married, her hair becomes holy and it's solely just for her husband. That being written, it's important and actually encouraged to find a wig that mimics your own hair and makes you feel beautiful. Then by filling this commandment, God will bless you.
I swear to my God, these Jews have more loopholes in their religion than Hamas has tunnels underground. So you cannot show your real hair, so you mimic it by putting hair that looks exactly the same like your hair.
Why don't you just wear a headscarf just like traditional Christian and Muslim ladies then? Why does it always have to be playing games with God? You are tricking nobody but yourself.
Man, this is ridiculous, man. Ridiculous.
They're so amazingly awesome, they actually tricked the Most High. Man, how awesome are the chosen people, right? While we're all here, what is that damn cube that they place upon their foreheads while thrusting their pelvis into a wall? This act indeed is an abomination of the nations. Could that thrusting be a ritual to their father? Isaiah chapter 14.
Why do Jewish men wear boxes on their head and their arm when they pray?
Each morning, we start by rolling up our sleeve, and then we wrap ourselves in our tallis or prayer shawl. The shawl has 4 corners with strings on each end. The strings are called tzitzis, and they remind us of the 613 commandments or mitzvot, which bind us to God. We then take the black leather boxes. Inside these boxes are prayer scrolls. We wrap it around our arm with leather straps 7 times symbolically of the 7 emotional powers of the soul. We then take the other box and place it on our head, and we meditate on how one's mind should always control and govern their heart. It's a time for prayer and introspection. I hope that you like my video, got some answers, and enjoy my little dance at the end. Shalom.
I feel as though I'm about to say something ugly, so let's just move on. Let's finally finish verse 10. Deuteronomy chapter 18 and the rest of verse 10. Quote, who deals with omens and auguries, end quote.
Senior political officials of the Roman state had to take auspices before any major political event, like elections, and before a battle. They would draw on the expertise of an augur from the College of Augurs. Membership of the College of Augurs was for life, with new members elected periodically. 2 of the main kinds of auspices that were deliberately taken involved birds. One type involved watching for the flights of specific kinds of birds, eagles, vultures, buzzards, or woodpeckers, or listening for the cries of birds, crows, owls, and eagles. You had to work out whether the birds were good or bad, and this was determined partially by where they appeared in the sky in relation to a grid that crisscrossed where the viewer stood, the height at which they flew, and the speed and noise of their wing movements. The other main method of bird divination involved observing whether or not the sacred chickens ate the food that was given to them. You had to take auspices at night, and they were valid only for the day to come. So if the activity you were taking auspices for was continued or delayed, you had to repeat them. Even though you were only looking for a yes or no on the timing of the event, the law was complicated and open to interpretation and to challenges. Even if the day had been cleared for the activity, other officers of state could claim to see spontaneous signs from the gods that meant that the event had to be cancelled.
Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 26, quote, eat not on the mountain, nor shall ye employ auguries, nor divine by inspection of birds, end quote. There's a reason why the Most High told us not to eat upon the mountains. Just as the Most High chose Mount Zion for his holy mountain, didn't the Israelis' father say he was going to sit on a lofty mountains towards the north and be like the Most High? Isaiah 14:12-14. Even Lucy tried to copy our Elohim, just like the nations copy the Most High's people. Augury or auguries and omens and observer of times are closer related but not the same entirely. In the case of auguries, this is divining by the use of birds. As the story goes, 6 birds landed on this hill and 12 birds landed on another hill. Because this supposedly happened, one of the most important kingdoms was founded. Sounds ridiculous, right? But that's a true story of how they chose the hill to build Rome upon. Yeah, no lie.
Along the River Tiber, they found a place that seemed good. where the river ran among 7 hills. Romulus thought the Palatine Hill by far the best place, partly because it was closest to where they had been found as babes. But Remus disagreed. The Aventine Hill, Remus said, had a better aspect, being less steep and therefore easier to build upon. And that surely was a more pressing reason than the one Romulus clung to. Also, there was the issue of who would rule the city once it was built. Since Romulus and Remus were twins, neither could claim to have more of a claim than the other because of age. The brothers argued at length over what was to be done, yet neither would yield to the other. Wishing yet to resolve their quarrel peacefully, they went to Numitor to ask for his advice. Numitor suggested they determine which course to follow by augury, since surely a sign from the gods would be the best guide in such a great undertaking as the foundation of a city. The brothers agreed that this was wise advice, and so returned with their followers to the place along the Tiber. Remus declared the Aventine Hill the place where he would look for augury, while Romulus took the Palatine. While they watched, a flight of 6 vultures was seen above the Aventine Hill, which Remus took to be a sign that his cause was in the right. But soon after that, Romulus reported 12 vultures above the Palatine Hill. Since they had not determined how the augury was to be interpreted beforehand, Remus claimed himself the victor because birds had been seen over his hill first, while Romulus said the prize should go to him since his hill had the greater number of birds. This time the quarrel did come to blows, and in the fight that ensued, Romulus killed his brother, thus becoming sole ruler of the new kingdom.
The pride of the beige man's world, Rome, was founded by an act the Most High finds to be an abomination, using auguries.
Hey man, you ever wonder if the Roman Empire actually fell? What do you mean? Of course they did. That's what they want you to think. But what if they didn't fall? What if they just evolved?
Bro, it's literally called the fall of Rome.
Yeah, but what's Rome? The Western Roman Empire collapsed in 476 CE, right? But the Eastern Roman Empire, what we call the Byzantine Empire, went on for another 1,000 years.
Okay, but that was like different.
Was it though? They still called themselves Romeoi. Their capital, Constantinople, was New Rome, and they had an emperor.
Wait, so they never saw themselves as something else?
Nope, until it fell in 1453. And guess who started calling itself the Third Rome afterwards?
The Vatican?
Nah, even crazier, Moscow. The Russians claimed to be the rightful heir to Rome's legacy.
That's wild. Tsar is literally just Caesar in Russian. But what about the Vatican?
The Vatican kept the spiritual side of Rome alive, but think about it. Roman Catholic Church.
Okay, but wasn't there something like the Holy Roman Empire?
Yep, they were neither Holy Roman nor an empire, but they were definitely trying to channel that Roman vibe, crowning emperors and using Roman law. Charlemagne gets crowned by the Pope, and boom, a new Rome for the Middle Ages.
So Rome never fell, it just passed the torch.
Exactly. The architecture, the law, the idea of Rome, those things spread to Western Europe in the church and eventually made its way to America.
So architecture, law, religion,
and symbols. That eagle that Americans are so proud of, that's Rome's SPQR. You still see it all over Italy. Even America's government buildings look like Roman temples. Washington, D.C. is basically a modern-day Forum Romanum.
Most of Rome's gold and silver was stored in vaults under the floor of their treasury, which was also known as the Temple of Saturn. If you visit Rome, go to the Forum in the center of the city, where you can still find the ruins of the temple today. And here's something I found really interesting. The U.S. Treasury in Washington, D.C. has almost exactly the same design.
Wait, so you're saying the U.S. is Rome 2.0?
Think about it. Republic, Senate, Latin mottos. The founding fathers were straight up obsessed with Roman ideals.
You know, it's also kind of interesting that the majority of the U.S. presidents are related to the royal bloodline. Talk about keeping power within the family.
And as far as power goes, Europe's old families, royal bloodlines, Russian nobility all claim to be descendants of Rome's legacy.
So the empire never ended, it just transformed.
Welcome to the new Rome.
Does this video explain the feat of Daniel chapter 2 statue dream? The 10 toes being made of clay and iron? The most simple and probably most known omen is saying it's bad luck when a black cat crosses your path. Don't know if they're referring to the animal itself or so-called black people in general.
Key and Peele put a movie out with a cat in it. They put the cat on the poster. They dressed the cat up like instead of putting two that made the movie on the poster.
So was it a cat in a suit or dressed up like a nigga?
You know a cat, what a cat look like.
Okay.
Ever wonder why the Mexican flag has an eagle eating a snake on it? Well, according to them, this was an omen from their god to build and settle at Tehuantitlan.
Have you ever seen the Mexican flag with the eagle holding a snake in its beak and standing on a cactus? Well, that image likely is an adaptation of the Atlachinoli. The eagle on the cactus comes from an Aztec migration story. Their patron god, Huitzilopochtli, told them to leave their ancestral homeland in Aztlan and migrate elsewhere. He said they'd know where to settle when they saw an eagle on a cactus. They'd eventually see this sign on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco, where they'd build their capital city Tenochtitlan. Today, that city is Mexico City. The snake in the eagle's mouth only gets incorporated into the story after the Spanish conquest in 1521. Spaniards seem to have confused the Aztec warfare symbol with a serpent.
The butt-buddy Romans merely adopted these wicked acts along with their entire culture. Of course, it was started with Canaan, or maybe a culture older than Canaan, and was later adopted by them, the Mizrahi, then the Greek and Romans, and today, the crackers, nations, and heathens. For I believe what we see today is similar to the daily goings before the flood. Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 11, quote, "A sorcerer employing incantation, one who has in him a divining spirit, an observer of signs, questioning the dead," end quote. Incantations are charms or enchantments, and those who do such things have divining spirits. What if those with divining spirits are the ones who can actually control foul spirits? Just a thought. According to the text, males are just as active with witchcraft and wizardry as are the women. Wickedness doesn't care about gender lines, people. Men were hunted too during the Salem witch trials, but the women by far get the most notoriety. Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 31, quote, "Ye shall not attend to those who have in them divining spirits, nor attach yourselves to enchanters, to pollute yourselves with them. I am Yah, your Elohim," end quote. The Most High Yah does not change, Luciferian Christians. This is a law that y'all keep saying is done away with. Even y'all will acknowledge that witchcraft is bad. Well, I think you would, but you're a Luciferian Christian, so all bets are off. See, I told you that just being in the presence of diviners and enchanters will pollute you, let alone actually divining or enchanting anything yourself. Be forewarned, the Most High does not approve of this, people of all nations. You will be warned before your destruction, and this here is a warning. Now for the nation, based on all the scriptures that I've read that have the most people with divining spirits in them. Isaiah chapter 19 and verse 3, quote, "And the spirit of the Mizrahi shall be troubled within them, and I will frustrate their counsel, and they shall inquire of their gods and their images, and them that speak out of the earth, and them that have in them a divining spirit," end quote. Mizraim as a nation has divining spirits in them. Oh yeah, sorcerers employing incantations as well, which enabled them to speak to those in the earth, aka necromancy. Unfortunately, we know many of the idol gods of Mizraim by name. When I was younger, I used to play a game called Yu-Gi-Oh! Based on a Japanese cartoon dubbed to English, where you would summon monsters, dragons, magicians, and even Egyptian gods. Unfortunately, that's how I learned about the gods of Mizraim, packaged as entertainment for children. The word of Yah is ever living. Just like Dragon Ball is Buddhist mythology. So, are Japanese people the original monkeys? Since we're on anime, check out this next clip and let me know what y'all see in the comment section. Remember during the Exodus, when Moses and Aaron were told by the Most High to do certain things that was mimicked by the Mizraim enchanters? They mimicked or tried to copy at least 5 plagues In the others, their sorcery was no match for Yah's divine intervention. The ones that they were able to duplicate, based on the narrative, they weren't impressed by what Aaron did, and multiple of their enchanters match what Aaron did. Aaron's staff turning into a serpent, Exodus 7, 10 through 13. Water turning into blood, Exodus 7, 20 through 23. Frogs compassing Mizraim, Exodus 8, 5 through 7. Gnats or lice, Exodus 8, 16 through 19. And the boils, Exodus 9, 10 through 12. I went over the Exodus narrative to prove that the Most High gave or allowed certain men to do certain things that would be considered witchcraft. Aaron's staff turning into a serpent or tannin in Hebrew. This serpent is different from the serpent of Genesis chapter 3. That serpent was called a nakash in Hebrew. One serpent was actually a snake, and the other one wasn't really a snake. Regardless, the wise men, sorcerers, and magicians did the same as Aaron, but Aaron's obedience was not considered witchcraft nor magic. Let's finish Deuteronomy chapter 18 so we can tackle those so-called contradictions in the word of Yah. Deuteronomy chapter 18 verses 12 through 14, quote, "For everyone that does these things is an abomination to Yah thy Elohim. For because of these abominations, Yah will destroy them from before thy face. Thou shalt be perfect before Yah thy Elohim. For all of these nations whose land thou shalt inherit, they will listen to omens and divination, but Yah thy Elohim has not permitted thee so to do." End quote. The Most High will destroy these nations for their abominations. We shall be perfect before the Most High. Perfection comes from the law. The nations are still listening to omens and divinations as at this day. We are truly small among all of these wicked nations. Being holy means being different than the nations or set apart. Zion, we are the light of this world. The Most High Yah chose our people to spread his righteousness throughout the earth. If they have ears, let them hear. And if they have eyes, let them see. Remember in the last video when I said communicating by dreams would loom large? There are laws and testimonies, the prophets, that speak against listening to those dreamers of dreams. Jeremiah chapter 34 and verse 9, the KJV chapter 27, quote, "And hearken ye not to your false prophets, nor to them that divine to you, nor to them that foretell events by dreams to you, nor to your augurers, nor to your sorcerers, that say, ye shall by no means works for the king of Babylon." End quote. The proof is in the pudding. The Hebrew camps always say that we are in Babylon. Well, I think Uncle Jeremiah may have a dual prophecy, talking about y'all false prophets. The Most High Yah spoke to Jeremiah to tell him to warn the people against the false prophets, one of which was foretelling events by dreams. However, both Uncles Joshua and Daniel were able to interpret dreams. Other enchanters, magicians, sorcerers, and the Chaldeans weren't able to. Both brothers said that it was the Most High that told or gave them that understanding of said dreams. Exodus 41 and 16, 25 and 28, Daniel chapter 2, verses 19 through 23, especially verses 28 and 23. Verses 46 and 47 of Daniel chapter 2, the king said to Daniel, "Your Elohim is an Elohim of Elohims, and the Lord of kings, who reveals mysteries." Yah has shown the nations that their idol gods completely come up short when trying to match the Most High. Take the Elijah fire from heaven story and the prophets of shame as the scriptures attest. Their idol god has a strange custom for them to do. It pleases him that they cut themselves with knives and lances until they gush out blood all over the place. And their idol god didn't do a damn thing even after they did that. He was too scared to have a showdown with the Most High Yah. Their witchcrafts and sorceries are no match for Yah's divine intervention. The Chaldeans are yet another nation whose sole export was wizardry and witchcraft. Just like Uncle Nahum, chapter 3, verses 4 through 5, tells us that Nineveh is such a well-favored harlot and very skilled in sorcery that she sells the nations by her fornication and peoples by her sorcery. Zion, I have a theory on the selling the nations by her fornication and the peoples by her sorceries. Turn to Uncle Jonah, chapter 4 and 11. Jonah, chapter 4 and verse 11, Quote, "And shall I not spare Nineveh, the great city, in which dwell more than 12 myriads of human beings, who do not know their right hand or their left hand, and also much cattle?" End quote. A myriad is 10,000, so Nineveh had 12 myriads, which would be 120,000 human beings not knowing their left hand from their right hand. Could this be the people by her fornication Uncle Nahum is referring to? That's a huge multitude of human beings not knowing basic body parts. Could Nineveh have been a nation that clones people or makes real-life NPCs with her fornication and sorceries? This could explain why there are so many idiots in the world today who just seem to get caught in every trap and snare. Not just talking about religion here either, people. In part A, we read from Uncle Joshua chapter 23, where the Most High told Israel as a nation not to step off to the left hand or to the right hand off the path that leads to him. Clearly, the Israelites as a nation knew our lefties from our righties. No question, these human beings are either clones or something much worse. At the Chicago's World Fair, they had a building called the Baby Incubator Building.
Some of these are from World Fairs, and I'm going to concentrate on the Chicago World's Fair in 1838, I think it was. And they tried to make us believe that they built this city out of plasterboard and chicken wire. Yeah, it's massive architecture that we can't replicate today. In fact, they say that, but there's several buildings from this World's Fair that they literally picked up, floated to another city, and they're still using them today. So it can't be chicken wire and plasterboard. So also it seems that these cities came with technology, because they could light this city up again like a Christmas tree at a time when they were struggling to light New York up. In fact, at this time, say London was still being lit by gaslight. But this is all electric light, lighting up the entire city. Also, there's this weird building in Chicago World Fair called the Baby Incubator Building. This is the Baby Incubator Building. In it were hundreds and hundreds of live babies in incubators. This was a sideshow, that people can come and just look at these babies. Very strange. Again, what for? Yeah, what for? Now,
a famous Jewman, his father, he said was on display. I'm going to say he was cloned at one of these world fairs.
I'll tell you how widespread this was. This is Jerry Seinfeld. Well, this
mine
isn't,
about
but
the same, early
this guy.
1900s. My dad was an incubator baby in Coney Island. He was on display. They had just invented the incubator. He was.
You could literally tell me anything, I'd believe.
No, it's true.
Yes, I was a bit
Totally
quiet,
susceptible.
Yeah.
but it's Jerry Seinfeld. His father was an incubator baby. There was lots and lots of these incubator babies. Now I found a weird picture amongst these pictures of incubators. Yeah, was this one. Amazing growth, it said above. Baby incubator, 12 months growth in 1 hour. That's odd, isn't it? I wonder if that's true. Again, remember, they had technology from these cities.
That movie Netflix made a few years back called They Clone Tyrone wasn't just a creative movie idea. They are cloning people as you listen to this video. Hell, some people think Kanye West has been cloned. I believe that the orphan trains were a method that they used to get their clones throughout the world.
Though, you got this phenomenon. Orphan trains. Somehow, in New York, there were 300,000 orphans. Where did these orphans come from? What happened to the parents? 300,000 orphans. And what they were doing was putting them on trains and transporting them all across America to populate the cities that are around, Not only that, but in Victorian London, there were loads and loads of orphanages. and lots of child labour. These children, you can find loads of pictures of children operating heavy machinery. Where are the parents? Now, it was said that women were having children out of wedlock, and the stigma was so bad that they give up their children, leave them on the steps of orphanages. But if it was such a stigma, they wouldn't do that twice, would they? So where did all these children come from? And again, it wasn't just London and America, it was all over the world. There were orphans being transported, from England to Australia and Canada, in Europe. There were orphans going everywhere. But there were no black orphans.
Exodus chapter 28 and verse 26 in the Septuagint, quote, "And thou shalt put the manifestation and the truth on the oracle of judgment, and it shall be on the breast of Aaron, when he goes into the holy place before Yah, and Aaron shall bear the judgments of the children of Israel on his breast before Yah continually," end quote.
Divination. You know Urim and Thummim, which is worn by the high priest. Urim and Thummim, Urim white, Thummim black, were used by the Hebrew high priest for divination. But Deuteronomy 18 says, don't do divination. But we find here the priest is authorized to do divination using Urim and Thummim, light and thunder. So this is what we call subtle contradictions. Why do we say it is subtle contradictions? Because
so not every Israelite had the chance to do this. Just like Joseph and Daniel were just a handful of Israelites who the Most High actually let interpret dreams or gave them the wisdom to understand dreams that they didn't dream themselves. Does this give insight to the fact that dreams can tell the future? I've personally had dreams that have come true, leaving me with a deja vu feeling, to see something right in front of your face that you dreamed about days, months, or even years ago. Nothing major or life-changing like Joseph or Daniel. Remember the Daniel 2 dream with the statue? Those events are still happening as at this day. So in conclusion of this matter, yes, the Most High Yah did allow certain men or women to have the ability to do such things as the abominations of the nations, in this instant, foretelling events by dreams. But they were used to counteract the illicit activities of the nations round about us, and to show that their weak idol gods truly have no power to match our Elohim. The Most High Yah was showing them He is more powerful, wise, and perfect beyond the false gods they get their wicked practices from. Yah Almighty is His name. 2 Chronicles chapter 33 verses 1 through 13, quote, "Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yah according to all the abominations of the heathen, whom Yah destroyed from before the face of the children of Israel. And he returned and built the high places which his father Hezekiah had pulled down, and set up images to a false god, and made groves, and worshipped all the hosts of heaven, and served them. And he built altars in the house of Yah, concerning which Yah said, In Jerusalem shall be my name forever. And he built altars to all the hosts of heaven in the 2 courts of the house of Yah. He also passed his children through the fire in the valley of Ben Ninnim. And he divined and used auspices and sorceries, and appointed those who had divining spirits, and enchanters, and wrought abundant wickedness before Yah to provoke him. And he set the graven image, the molten statue, the idol which he made in the house of Elohim, of which Elohim had said to David and to Solomon his son, In this house and Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, will I put my name forever. And I will not again remove the feet of Israel from the land which I gave to their fathers, if only they will take heed to do all things which I have commanded them, according to all the law and the ordinances and the judgments given by the hand of Moses. So Manasseh led astray Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to do evil beyond all the nations which Yah cast out from before the children of Israel. And Yah spoke to Manasseh and to his people, but they hearkened not, And Yah brought upon them the captains of the host of the king of Assyria, and they took Manasseh in bands, and bound him in fetters, and brought him to Babylon. And when he was afflicted, he sought the face of Yah his Elohim, and was greatly humbled before the face of the Elohim of his fathers. And he prayed to him, and he hearkened to him, and listened to his cry, and brought him back to Jerusalem, to his kingdom. And Manasseh knew that Yah is his Elohim. End quote, an example. First off, this shows how merciful Yah truly is. Plus, his promise to Uncle King David that his seed would always sit upon the throne. I believe the Most High handled him with kid gloves because of who his father is, the aforementioned David, and directly from his loins, one of the most righteous kings that we've ever had, Hezekiah. Manasseh, the son of Hezekiah, did evil before Yah, according to all the abominations of the heathen. We got all of this BS from the heathens, not Yah, which proves the Most High never did, told, or showed us anything to pervert our souls. It was and is the nations and their idol gods as at this day. Manasseh set up the Be idol and worshiped all the hosts of heaven and served them. He even built altars to them in the house of Yah. He passed his children through the fire to unholy moly. Does this prove that unholy moly and that Be idol are gods upon the earth, and the host of heaven are gods in heaven, or they're just different? Maybe the hosts give the gods upon the earth their marching orders. He divined, used auspices, and sorceries. He provoked the Most High by abundant wickedness. And perhaps the biggest and worst folly is that Manasseh led Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem astray to do evil beyond the Canaanites we took the land from. Now that's some major wickedness right there. The Most High Yah was still merciful. Our Elohim hearkened to his cries and broke the bands of the captain of the host of the king of Assyria to bring him back from Babylon to Jerusalem. And Manasseh knew that Yah is his Elohim. Again! We see what crying out to Yah will do for you. Even after he did all of that, the Most High still chose to save him from his enemies. Zion, leave those abominable acts and rituals alone. Manasseh has done worse than some of us according to the text. Even still, the Most High listened to his cries and saved him. You know, there's a saying that goes, a smart person learns from another person's mistake. Manasseh made horrible mistakes and paid for it dearly. Now, we need to learn from his mistakes and don't repeat it. But most importantly, cry to the Most High. I could have used this for another crying out video, but I got two birds with one stone. No auguries intended. Until next time, Zion, stay away from these nations that are trying to lead you astray with their idol gods. Drink water that hasn't been enchanted and cry out to the Most High Yah. Hallelujah, brothers and sisters.